Díogh go léir accorda agus sáfáilte ród. Welcome to be my guest with me, Mary Honan, on Lear Media TV, supporting the Samaritans, Limerick and Tipperary. And coming up on the show today is the wonderful Ruti Lachs. And just to tell you a little bit about Ruti, her first article on Jewish Cork was printed in the Echo in Cork in 2020. She recorded and shared 30 original songs during November, some live on Facebook, others pre-recorded with video on my YouTube channel. The final draft of Green Feather Boa, her musical, was completed, and it's set in Cork Jewish community in the early 1900s. And she created a 6-part online video series for children called Stomping in the Woods Videos. In 2019, Ruti toured with her second one-woman show, A Different Kettle, and continued writing a musical play, work entitled Grandma's Story. In 2017 to 18, she performed her first one-woman show, Sideways on Planet Piano, which is comical musical theatre. She plays in various ensembles and bands, currently the Fireflies Klezmer Band and Quangodelic Funk Band, piano, accordion and trombone, and is also a soloist. And she's employed as a community musician and music teacher with over 20 years experience. In 2014, she graduated with a master's in community music at the University of Limerick. And her MA research investigates potential social and language benefits of group music activities for children aged 3 to 5 years. She teaches piano, violin, recorder, guitar, and ukulele, single and group lessons. And I'd like now to welcome, hello Ruti.
Hi Mary, I'm very tired listening to all that.
Oh, well, you know, I'll tell you something, Ruti. I have to be very clear. This is not me not able to pronounce my THs, but her name is spelled R-U-T-I. Ruti, you were born in the UK.
Yes, with the name Ruth.
Which is very biblical. It's very, very Ruth, and I know some Ruths and that, but what made you come to Ireland? Why did you decide to come? Why Ireland?
I moved to Ireland because a good pal told me that it was a lovely place to be. He had moved over from England and said, you know, come and visit. It's lovely over here. So myself and my boyfriend at the time and our dog came over to have a look over at the county bounds near Clonkeen and stayed.
Was it an instant love affair with Ireland once you came, Ruti?
It was. I'd been on the road in England, living in a truck, and
oh my goodness! There you were thinking you wouldn't have a fascinating life to tell me. Tell me all about living on the road in a truck, Ruti.
It's a long time ago. It's 30 years ago, I suppose. Is it now? Oh my God, or more. So living, Maggie Thatcher days, and we used to go to free festivals and that kind of thing, and be chased around by the police because we weren't supposed to be there, expressing ourselves in a creative way. And I mean, granted, sometimes farmers' fields, but often public places like Stonehenge or, you know, the byways near there.
So are you, Ruti, what they call a tree hugger?
No, I haven't hugged a tree for quite a long time. But they make them too big these days. Don't you find that? They make trees ever so big these days, and it's really impossible to get your arms around it.
Very annoying, these trees. They just get too big. You just can't hug them.
They don't make them like they used to.
make them like they used to. No, I have loads of trees in my garden. It's not a big garden, but you could hug those. They're not huge.
Oh, great. I'll be around in the morning. So
Apple blossoms and cherry blossoms. But it's always said, how tree huggers, as if it's some kind of a, the people who are live alternative lifestyles and go off the grid. And many people from, say, business communities and who have been in the business world and finance and that, and they just had enough. And they just go out into the countryside and they grow vegetables and they rear pigs and they breed cows, and they just take a completely different lifestyle.
Yeah, so coming from an Orthodox Jewish background, rearing pigs never really was an option. But
probably wrong animal for you.
That's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, trying to go off grid was definitely a plan at some point. I did attempt that for a few years, living in the back of beyond in Glencoe, County Kerry. But I think that very difficult life just didn't work out for me. Clearly, I had a different path to follow. But I mean, I've got a good few friends that are growing their own vegetables and managing to do that. So, and really, they love it. They love it.
Changes themselves, who kind of grows every so many years, and you become somebody else because you're a musician, because you're a creative person. Is it hard for you to define yourself as one thing? You're a writer, you're a musician, you're an academic, you're a historian, and you're an Orthodox Jew. How did that if you like, off-grid lifestyle go? Did it go well with your parents? Did they?
So I'm not an Orthodox Jew. So I was brought up religious, but I'm an atheist. So so that changed around the age of 14. But my parents also knew people, but from an Orthodox community, who had actually moved to Wales and were farming sheep and making their own yogurt and stuff. So my folks were mad about countryside and really.
Well, you have a history anyway of picking two beautiful countries. My grandmother was from Wales, so you picked Ireland and you picked Wales. I was born in the UK as well.
Okay, right.
Yeah, but I came back when I was very young, 5. But I spent a lot of times going over there and coming back, and it's very different in the sense of, well, we're getting a little bit like London now, because it used to be where it was so quiet. When you came here to Ireland, you must have found it completely different.
I had come from Wales, and it was amazing, because even though I really did like Wales and did lots of walking there and, beautiful place. But when I came here, I mean, the first thing was that I found locals really, really friendly. But yeah, the other thing was, like, everybody went to town in their wellies, because there was a lot of farmers where I was in Kerry, and you didn't, if you had your muddy jeans on and your wellies, and you could just go into town and you fitted in, and you didn't feel like you were a bit odd. And like, you might think rural Wales was the same, but it wasn't, not the way I experienced it anyway. Maybe it's different for different people, obviously.
And you lived in Kerry for 30
I think 28 or 28 years, something like that. Yeah.
I'm telling you how many years you lived in Wales, but I'm very good at looking up people's LinkedIn profiles. Someone said to me one day, Mary, if I'd known, I would have banned you from Facebook, from my Facebook page, because I stalked them to try and find information about them. But why did you move to Cork? Now it's, I mean, if you actually look at the history of the Jewish people, the Jewish community in Ireland, we had a Jewish community here in Limerick, as you know, and in 1903, there was, most of the Jewish community were sadly felt compelled to leave Limerick because of violence toward. There was no killing. It was called a pogrom, but it wasn't really in the sense that no one was killed. It was just people were hounded out of their homes and many of them ended up in Cork.
Yeah.
And they didn't intend to stay in Cork, but for some reason or other, Pat Barry would say it was because Cork is spectacular.
Yeah.
They decided to stay and make their homes there. Why were you so fascinated? Was this why you were so fascinated with Cork?
Yeah, well, I don't think. Yeah, I mean, I think 1904. This Redemptorist priest, Father Cray, sort of, from the pulpit, kind of, encouraged people to think Jews were in Limerick, shouldn't be there, and boycott their businesses. And I think stones were thrown, and there was some anti-Semitism, and most of the Jews there left. My situation was completely different. I was very welcomed into Kerry, Jewish or otherwise. I don't think anybody really cared because.
No, they don't.
Because people don't usually.
I don't think people care anyway anymore. I think it's ignorance in many cases.
Well, I think that as far as I understand, and I'm not widely read, but I think that the boycott in Limerick was instigated by a particular person. And obviously, it's often the case, isn't it, that one person who's got a load of charisma.
The Redemptorist. Father Cray and the Redemptorist, and people, some people, a few people, but enough to make the little community feel uncomfortable and move. But Cork was very welcoming. And tell me about your.
So my reason for moving to Cork was that my kids had grown up, and I sort of felt the need to do something different. And I'd been playing a lot of music in Cork over the years because I like playing klezmer, which is Jewish wedding music, and jazz, and I'm interested in kind of maybe a bit alternative experimental music, and just felt like there was more going on in Cork. It was time to move from my big house in Kerry where I brought up my sons, and they had both left Ireland by the time I moved to Cork. So
and there's the Cork Jazz Festival.
There's the Cork Jazz Festival, and I had done an H-dip in UCC, and there was a lot of improvised music scene, and I know musicians in Cork that I'd played with for years anyway, but I'd always been traveling up and down the road, and city life was kind of calling me, really. So, and also I was starting to perform some theatre that I'd written myself, the first one-woman show, Sideways on Planet Piano. And I suppose, theatre-wise in Kerry, there's obviously just a lot more going on in Cork, and it's all in one space. And I was lucky to. But
again, it must have been after spending 28 years in rural Kerry, going to Cork City must have been, or and at the same time spending 20. I know you wouldn't have probably spent 28 years in rural Kerry if you didn't absolutely love it, because it is the most beautiful. Again, Pat would say the only thing good about Kerry is the road to Cork, but then he's a Cork man, and they're very. I've heard lots of Cork people saying that, but I love Kerry, and the thing about it is, it must have been a creative person. It must have been a great inspiration there, but at the same time, you must have been somewhat starved, I suppose, for meeting other people that were involved in the creative side, in the music side, that you I was just always traveling. So in 2013, I did my master's in Limerick, like you were saying, and that community music masters, the classes take place on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I rented a room in Limerick. So I was in Limerick 2 or 3 nights every week. I'm back to Kerry for teaching and my work in the KDYS youth service. I think that was my first taste of city living, and even though I was near the university, so a little bit outside the city, I joined the Limerick Jazz Workshop, which is a fantastic institution, as you probably know, and every Tuesday was playing jazz there with great people in Limerick. So when I was back in Kerry then after my master's,
I was just always traveling for music up to Limerick or up to Cork. I was just always, or down to West Cork. I was always on the road. Kerry's a great, for me, was a really brilliant place to live. And people from all over the world visited me and stayed in my house and played music. And, you know, I organised gigs for them and did gigs with them. And it was a wonderful place to live. And I love Kerry and I miss Kerry and all my mates there. But, you know, it was the right time for me to move to Cork, and this whole theatre life suddenly has sort of started happening for me. I mean, it is totally new phase. And then along with that, then, you know, starting to research the Cork Jewish community, which has just taken me off on another angle altogether.
Tell me about that, because it's still a creative road. I mean, you're still finding a creative way into it. I mean, I graduated from the College of Art. That was my degree. Then I ended up doing an MA in English and a PhD in English. But they were all, I look on it as creative ways of approaching everything. I don't play an instrument, sadly, yet. It is an aim of mine to learn the piano.
Ukulele. Well, you learn the ukulele. Ukulele's great. It's a fun little instrument. It's only small.
Funny, the ukulele. Are you going to play some for me?
On the ukulele? No, I doubt it. Well, I can play a few chords if you like. I have a very pretty ukulele here.
Do you know, actually, I interviewed Michael Metelitz, he's living in the United States. He was probably the first Auschwitz survivor I interviewed. And all he wanted to do was play his ukulele. And I'm actually going
What is it about the ukulele?
Because he's 93 years of age and he was trying to forget. And yet his daughter was trying to tell his story, and she was there, and she was upset, and he was trying, and she was trying, and he kept saying, "Do you know, I like my ukulele?" And he'd take up the ukulele and start playing it again. And I thought, just leave him off and leave him play his ukulele. So he did, and that was really the first time I've ever had anyone on playing the ukulele.
Oh, there you go. Guys and their stringed instruments, they spend hours on them, don't they?
But do you know, it's gone through a revival, the ukulele.
Yeah, it's very popular. I'm actually teaching one ukulele student at the moment, and she's learning very fast because it's small, it's light. There's only 4 strings. I mean, you know, and to make a C chord, all you have to do is put one finger on one string. You know, I mean, how easy is that? And then there's an A set. You know, one finger on one string.
You know, I tried to learn the guitar. A friend of mine, Lord Reston, Ty Coran, was teaching me the guitar. And he used to say, in Irish, he used to say, "Quir sus the lava, put out your hand." And he'd start cutting. And I had long nails at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And he cut my nails.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I remember thinking, I was horrified, and he was teaching me the guitar, and he said I was good at it, but I just needed to practice. But what I didn't like was the pain, and I mean, my friend teaches the harp, and she used to say that she used to dip her finger in, I think it was methylated spirits or something, and it hardened the skin around the fingers, because I just used to, the pain was just, and I wanted to get really soft strings, but Tig was saying you needed the steel string guitar to actually start learning on a steel string, and that's what put me off the guitar, was the pain that I suffered on the fingers. So I thought, piano, at least they can't hurt you.
Yeah, piano's great. And you know, here's a piano, look. You can't make a horrible sound on a piano. It's not like a fiddle or something, you know, you can't make a horrible sound on a piano.
Here, a Yamaha keyboard that
beautiful house you're in.
One of our colleagues here in the station, Dirk Decline, gave us a gift of brand new Yamaha keyboard. His daughter gave up. She stopped playing. and much to his disappointment. So he ended up bringing the piano down to us, which I might actually use for learning the
Well, there
piano.
you go. I give Zoom lessons these days, so there you go, Mary. We can talk about that after this.
Yeah, I'd
You want
love
your first lesson? Actually, let's have your first lesson now. Why don't we do that? That would be much more interesting than me talking about myself. Why don't you have your first lesson now on Zoom?
I wouldn't even know how to turn it on. I wouldn't even know how to turn it on, but I'll hold you to that. I'll actually, I wouldn't, all I can see is, no, I wouldn't even know how to plug, I'd know how to plug it in, but that would be about it. It's beautiful though. But tell me about your one-woman show, Sideways on Planet Piano.
Sideways on Planet Piano is it's about a 45-minute to an hour show. I've been a songwriter for many years and performed my songs all over the place, but I had this big folder full of songs, you know, and I just felt that I wanted to do something with them. And I was up in the Tyrone Guthrie Centre in Amno-Macarrig. I got a grant from Kerry County Council to go up there and do a retreat. So I went up with an idea to use a loop pedal and, you know, learn how to do that and to write some more songs. And I got chatting to someone. I was talking about the frustration of having written all these songs, but what do you do with them? Because to be honest, you don't get a gig in the pub standing up singing your own stuff. My stuff is quite quirky, and you know, it's hard to get gigs for that stuff. And when I described it to this guy Matthew Raleigh, he said, "Oh, it sounds like it could be a theatre show." So I then went and wrote my first theatre show, Sideways on Planet Piano. So that was quite a very fun process, actually.
And did it sound well? Were you pleased with the end result?
I was really pleased. You know, I was really pleased. I played it in 18, I think I did 18 performances in 18 different venues around Kerry and Cork mostly, but also, did I go to Limerick with that one or with the second one? I'm not sure. I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, the Everyman Bar, not the theatre, just the bar. So it was all small venues. The Roundy was one of the early ones.
Ruti, just leave it at I performed in the Everyman.
In the Everyman.
Nobody knows the difference. You're not lying. You did perform in the Everyman.
But I was delighted with the response in the Everyman Bar because it was full. And, you know, and people loved it, and people came up afterwards and wrote things to me afterwards, and people really, really liked it. What people really loved was one of the characters that I played, which was my Jewish grandma character, and people loved her. But people liked the songs. People laughed at all the right places. This was the thing as well. I had always sung funny songs, but, you know, this was a play with dialogue in between the songs. I also got, I have to say, I got great help with it. I went into the Theatre Development Centre in Cork, and I worked a bit with Dominic Moore, gave me some, you know, watched me, listened to me, gave me some feedback and helped me adapt it. Jerry Fitzgibbon at an early stage, you know, people established in theatre in Cork really helped me. And that was amazing because who was I? I was nobody coming in, like, you know, nobody knew who I was, but they all really supported my work. And that was amazing.
It was nobody amazing. Until somebody.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but it was just great to have the support and people going, yeah, we appreciate what you're trying to do and we're going to help you to do it, kind of thing.
Well, it's funny, do you know, I mean, you talk about people being loving your grandmother, and that they say that when you're writing something or when you're performing something, you should do something, you know.
Yeah.
And it always comes through as utterly authentic. A colleague of mine in Irish dancing, I teach and judge Irish dancing, and so does she. And she's an actress, Maura Clerkin, and she does a one-woman show as well about the bad arm of an Irish dancer, I think it's called. I must actually look at, but it's the bad. But anyway, she's doing something, that she actually understands.
Mm-hmm.
The bad, it's the Bad Arm Confessions of a Dodgy Irish Dancer, is the name of her. You know, and you can connect with it because you know that she has connected with it, because it's something that comes from her and from her soul and from her experience. It's not something that she has tried to understand from somebody else's life. It was her life. And she's in America now. She's English. She's originally from London, but she's living in San Francisco for many years. So there's plenty of outlets for Maura in America alone to actually present her one-woman show. But you did a second one-woman show.
Yeah, so I was performing sorry.
You did a second one-woman show.
Yeah, I did a different kettle, I called that.
Yeah, that's a musical.
So they're both musical shows. I play the piano, accordion, and piano and trombone. So the first one-woman show was mostly song with a bit of dialogue in between, and obviously different characters. My son, myself, my grandmother. Are there other characters in the first one? Can't remember. So long ago.
Maura's is the same. It's very hard to do. It must be incredibly hard to do, but fulfilling when you've done it. And it's almost like being a stand-up comedian, and you've got to go out there and you've got to engage the audience for an hour, 2 hours of a show, and you've got to create all these characters for the audience and help them to draw them in to the character. That's very hard. Why would you put yourself to that?
God knows, I probably never do it again. Except yesterday, I kind of did on Zoom, but only. Well, it's very different, and I can tell you about that in a bit. The sort of performance I'm doing now. But what happened when people were responding to the Jewish grandma character in the first one-woman show was that I decided to research not my own Jewish grandmother, because that was Liverpool, and it just felt like very different from where I'm at the moment. But I was, living in Cork. The shul, the synagogue had just closed. It was 2017. I'd moved to Cork City. 2016, the shul closed. Freddie Rosehill, who was the leader of the community, had passed away also in 2016. And I just felt like I was there playing Jewish music in the pubs and in festivals and, performing Jewish. I call it Jewish theatre because I am Jewish, and what I'm presenting, I suppose, sounds a bit Jewish, and the music and everything. So I started researching the Cork Jewish community and writing a musical play, which was called Grandma's Story. You mentioned it. It's gone through a few, and it's now called Green Feather Boa. But then at some point, I felt like Sideways on Planet Piano had reached the point of, okay, I've performed this in 18 different venues, and I just thought I need to follow up on that. I need to have something else that I go out performing. So I kind of wrote a sequel, I suppose, which was called A Different Kettle. And I changed things around a bit. There were less songs. I think there's still about 8 songs in A Different Kettle. More dialogue. So I suppose, just with the development of my own writing. So I performed that. I think that I had about 12 or 14 performances.
What was the inspiration for the title, A Different Kettle? Different kettle of fish?
Yeah. It's really hard to find a name for a band or a play.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, definitely for a band, it's really hard. Sometimes I think it's harder than anything else, like writing or rehearsing or performing, is finding a name that works. So yeah, a lot of things, a lot of possibilities, and that was just one that stuck, A Different Kettle.
It's different, but I mean,
I think what happened as well at a stage of it was that the different characters and the different times of the story that play went through, there were different kettles involved. I mean, that got quite a lot of crafting and rewriting, to the point at which there was very little about kettles in the story in the end.
When you
the name stuck.
when you look at that comedy series on TV, Mary Tyler Moore Show, and that
Uh-huh.
Rhoda
Not that
Morgan
I've ever seen.
wasn't Jewish, and you look at her mother in it, and they were the characters that certainly here in Ireland, I think that people remember even more than Mary Tyler Moore, because when you look at the Jewish grandmother, the Jewish mother, they're very like the Irish mother. Do you know they're very protective. I
Yeah.
could be probably generalizing, but the characters we see on TV of the Jewish mother, they're always very protective, and certainly over their sons, it seems. Same with with Italian mothers.
I was just going to say Italian. I was on holiday there once and met a real Italian mama who was,
Just
looking
they
after us so well. And
yeah, and they just become like, I mean, I lived with. I know it's not funny because I mean I've taken their deaths very badly, but I always say my parents had to die to get rid of me, because I was with them until they died, and I probably would still be living with them. And I think the Italian mothers are the same. They just don't want to see the back and Jewish mothers, they don't really want to see the back of their children,
well,
unless
that might be a generalization, or maybe my parents were just different. I don't know. I think I suppose Jewish diaspora as well, people actually don't encourage their children to stay at home. They encourage their children to go out and get an education somewhere and, have a life. And sometimes it's to have a more Jewish life. But I mean, in the case of my family, it was like, I mean, I grew up in Liverpool, and it was like, well, when you go to university, it's not going to be in Liverpool. You go off and you see a bit different of the world. And I know
that was nice.
that is so different here, because like even when my kids went off to college, they didn't come home every weekend, or with their dirty washing, or go back again with their pots of food like some of their friends did. They just go off and do your life. Yeah.
That's very, but then you lived a very carefree life as well, a very free, a very you're a free spirit.
So they say.
Tell me about your MA, because your MA was very focused on children 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, it's an MA in community music. So I suppose final project. I do a lot of community music work with that age group. I've actually got a CD that I made for children.
Yeah.
And
30 pieces of music, wasn't it?
No, that was a different project. The CD is around here somewhere. The CD is called Stomping in the Woods, and it's just songs that I wrote specifically for children, and I use it in my workshops with kids. And for the MA, I just wanted to look at, I suppose, how music in the classroom could be not just for music's sake, but also as a potential development or social, I don't even want to say tool, but that it could add to into that language that children have. So I worked with some 6 or 8 children and their parents in a preschool. And they were children that had been selected by the preschool teacher that had special educational needs. And we met up, I think, on 6 occasions and did a music workshop. It was really lovely. And, I suppose activities specifically planned. And then I had some feedback sessions with the parents and with the children.
What was your video? You're on the 6-part video.
Oh yeah, the 6 parts. So that was last year. Yeah. So the library wanted me to do some workshops, which I've done a lot of workshops all over Cork actually in the last couple of years, city and county. So with lockdown, I, instead of going out and doing workshops, I did them in my living room and videoed it and put them up online. So yeah, they're viewable online and very lively and enjoyable.
You like the variety of your life?
Say again, sorry?
You like the variety of your life?
I love the variety of my life. I mean, sometimes, like today, I was just reading Playboy of the Western World for the 3rd time.
Because say Playboy. Sorry.
Playboy with the Western world, and like, studying it and seeing, where's the drama rising and where's the crisis points and all that sort of thing, and analyzing it. And I thought, I just want to do this all day, every day. And then, another day I'll be practicing my accordion. I think, I just want to do this all day, every day. So yeah, there's great variety. Sometimes it would be nice if it was a little bit more honed in one direction.
You have no, you lack structure, but what you lack in structure, you gain in creativity. You don't say to yourself, I'm going to spend the week now doing A, and then I'm going to do B.
Well, I can't because because my job doesn't allow me to do that like everyone else. But hopefully over Easter, because I've got 2 weeks off from teaching, hopefully I'll be able to focus in on the writing.
If you had to make a choice between all of the things that you actually do, is it like asking you to decide between your babies?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is, I would just sleep. That's the first thing that would come to mind. I'd just choose sleeping. Then I think, I just choose walking by the sea or swimming in it, or, but you're talking about work.
Yeah, your creative work.
Something, I think one thing in a way can't happen. One thing can't happen without another. So what I'm doing now is I've been, like yesterday, I did a presentation performance with a synagogue in Boston on Zoom. And it was a really nice mixture because I sang a couple of songs from the musical play. I played some klezmer tunes, one of which I had composed myself. I talked about my research, and I showed the video of the Cork Jewish Culture Virtual Walk that I made last year. So, so it was a really nice combination of all things. And
would you like to play something for me? Anything?
I can play a klezmer tune if you like. Yeah, I just have to get my accordion. Sorry, I didn't have my accordion ready. 10 minutes. I'll tell you this story in a minute. So 10 minutes before I did this Boston show yesterday, this beautiful accordion that I love decided to get a sticking note, and it was the A here, and every time, and it just stuck in. I hope it's not going to do it now. And so every time I opened or closed the accordion, I had a sticking note. Yeah, so that was a bit problematic.
It's a lovely accordion.
So yeah, hopefully it's going to be okay. Do you sing, Mary?
I do, but I'm not going to.
Join in with the I. So okay, I'll just play a klezmer.
I'm a soprano, but yeah, but I don't have a lot of confidence singing.
Okay, I'll sing a song in Yiddish. I'll do an English translation, and then we'll do an I bit that you can join in with.
I.
Around them fire, wir singen Lieder. Die Nacht ist tired, man wird nicht müde. Soll der Feier verloschen werden, scheint euch der Himmel mit seinen Sternen. Tag und die Kerb mit Blumenkranzen, warum dem Feier den Freiler tanzen, weil tanzen liebt ist unser Leben, noch in Schlaf allein ist schweben. Around the fire we're singing songs, the night is young and no one's tired, and from the fire the sparks are rising, and in the heavens the stars are are shining. You crown your head with rings of flowers. Around the fire, we're dancing Freilachs, while dancing song, ooby-doop is our life. At night in sleep, our dreams are woven. Now's the bit you can join in if you like. At night in sleep, our dreams are woven.
That is just...
Thank you.
Just beautiful. Ruti, isn't it amazing how similar Yiddish is to German?
Yes, it is.
You know, I mean, if you understood German, I would have, and you know, from my own research, you know, it was obvious that much of the victims of, say, the Holocaust weren't able to speak Yiddish, and they weren't able to speak German because they were they were Greek, and the Greeks were the first to die because they couldn't speak any, so therefore they couldn't understand the language, because the Yiddish was so close, if you like, to German, that if you only spoke Yiddish, you'd still understand German, or vice versa. It's just amazing listening to it, how the words sound the same. You know, the similarities that are there.
Yeah. So Yiddish script would have been written in, it's the same lettering as the Hebrew alphabet, but the words are quite like German. I think there's also a few Russian words maybe in there. I don't know too much about the language, but yeah, if you speak German, you can get quite a bit of it.
I don't. I understand. I understand things that people say in German, and therefore when I hear people speaking in Yiddish, I just think, I could kind of understand. And we have a lot of, we say a lot of things here in Ireland actually that are I can't think of the words now, but you look and you think, gosh, actually I didn't realize that was a Yiddish word.
Oh yeah, like if you tell somebody they're a bit of a schloch, I don't know, do you use that one?
And there's another word that I can't remember what it was that somebody said, and I thought, God Almighty, we use that word here as well. You know, I can't think of it. But you did a CD in 2013 of original songs, which you presented at a workshop at the Conference of Society of Music Educators in Ireland.
Yeah, that was the Stomping in the Woods children's CD. So I think that was around the time I was doing my masters. So I presented that.
And using children's literature as a starting point for composition.
Oh yeah, that's another workshop I do, not with 3 to 5 year olds, usually with older children. So that was great actually. So we used the BFG. So I would choose a few bits from the BFG and work with groups of children and like give them a few words from the story to use to write their own song, and also look at some of the dramatic or the phrases that we used. So like the BFG, what are the Alice in Wonderland we used? So I wrote songs around that. I actually had a show for kids around Alice in Wonderland. What did I call that? Stomping in Wonderland, I think.
I taught drama and
okay.
So
okay.
But do you not think that working with drama and working with music has an effect beyond just listening to it, that it actually can connect with people on a more spiritual dimension than just conversation. I mean, if you look at somebody now with Alzheimer's, or you look at children with disabilities, how they can react to music. That they can't react, they can't remember, in the case of an Alzheimer's patient, how they can't remember anything.
Remember all the words of some songs.
Remember all the words of the songs, and children who are, if you work with, and I worked with children with special needs as well, and many of them were completely relaxed and involved in the dramas and the music side of things, but they found it difficult to communicate verbally. But yet, when it came to music, they just became animated. Do you find that it's very fulfilling to be working with people that you feel that your music is connecting with?
Yeah, I think, I mean, sometimes I feel very lucky because I go into places where, people are working hands-on, like maybe in a nursing home or an Alzheimer's unit in the hospital. And I go in and I do my hour of music and engage with people, and everybody's happy mostly. And and then the staff are really dealing with the day-to-day nitty-gritty of that. So, which I think is hard, but I suppose if that's your calling, then you relate to that and you can do that.
Yeah, because there's, I know that with Alzheimer's patients, again, they've seen huge connections with with Irish dancing and helping people with Alzheimer's, because one, they're having to remember, they're having to work with patterns, especially when they're doing teamwork. You're doing 8-hand dances or you're doing 4-hand dances. You're having to remember patterns, and you're having to, and you're listening to the music, and it's obviously in a different part of the brain than the brain that remembers.
That's interesting.
The music seems to be connected to a person in a completely different way than any conversation or can be, because otherwise, why would people remember songs, remember the words of songs? They obviously are packaged. When we compartmentalize all our thoughts and our memories, we must actually put the memories of songs, the memories of music into a different part of our brain.
And actually something that came up in my reading for the masters as well was about, even when children are learning words and how to pronounce words, and that if it's in a song, it can be a very good way for children to learn their vocab, of course, more than if it's just said, because when we say things, it's all around the one level maybe, and in a song. So for example, I've got one song that goes, "We're the breakfast fairies, splish, splash, splosh." And what I was reading, and it was even saying that if breakfast, that it's on 2 different notes, breakfast and fairy,
upward and downward inflection.
Yeah, so
inflections.
Yeah, so that even having that on the 2 syllables on 2 different notes could make it easier for a child to get their lips and tongues around those words because they're really hearing it.
And as well as that, when I was learning, studying for my Irish dancing exam, and you were trying to remember music, or you were trying to remember anything, I tended to put it into a poem. So I tended to put all the pieces of music and how many bars they were. So I'd say Bonaparte retreated down the old lodge road with the 3 sea captains, and I made a story out of it. And that way you were able to remember all the songs that were 4/4 time, all the dances 4/4 time, all the dances that were 2/4 time, and all the dances that were 6/8 time. And because you had a story, made out of it. And as well as that, again, they say that with maths, if you can teach maths to somebody in the form of a song, 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 2 is 4, 4 and 4 is it. And if you can put it into a song, then it becomes much more interesting. It
sticks in your mind, doesn't it? I mean, like I say, yeah, I mean, things stick in your mind. I was brought up Orthodox, and sometimes I wake up in the morning and one of the prayers will be in my head because it was repeated so much, and especially the ones that were sung, it was all sung. Yeah, that's just, and it sticks with you even when you don't use it for 40 odd years. So.
Oh, it's there, and it's there obviously really. in some untouchable part of your brain that nothing, that you know, that part that can never be affected somehow or other. Even it seems to be the last thing that goes from people is their ability to remember songs. And if you can actually, I always believe that if you actually have something that you want to remember, even if it's a scientific formulation or whatever, put it into a song, or not a song, but even put it into a poem or a verse that you like in verse form, and you'll remember it. Put the mathematical piece into, just to get it into your head in some way, and never goes. Because I mean, I had to learn a piece off about myself in Irish. I don't speak fluent Irish, but a friend of mine wrote it for me. All my 2.5 pages about me, and I learned it all off word for word. And I learned it off as a story, and went in, and all the man asked me was, "Hello, how are you?" And off I went. 15 minutes without stopping, until I saw him look at his watch and say, "God, I haven't asked her a question yet."
Do you still know it now?
I ran the clock down.
Do you still know it now, Mary?
I still know every bit of it, because every bit of it, it's strange. I still know the first page of my French book from first year in secondary, because I learned it off word for word. And I was only thinking of it the other day. And it's you know, it's just strange to me. Huh?
You've got a great memory as well.
Well, I've always had a good, thank God, tip wood. I've always had a good memory, and I think it was my memory that got me through exams. Because you know, you'd find ways of trying to remember things in a short space of time. Because my attention span wouldn't be great.
My memory is like a sieve, so you know, this is you know, it's kind of fine playing tunes, the right, you know, notes still come out somehow most of the time, but
they're there in that special part of your brain.
They are, but dates, or you know, like quoting somebody, I have to have it written down, you know. So yeah, that's just, dates don't stay with me at all.
Well, Ruti, where to from here now? What is your next?
So yeah, I would like to get Green Feather Boa produced. I would like to see Green Feather Boa on the stage, because I think it's it would be lovely to have the first full-length musical for a cast with a chorus and musicians. It would be lovely to see that produced, and also because it's set in the Cork Jewish community, and I think it would be really nice for that music and that to be on the stage. So I'm sort of doing what needs. So with the help of Katrina Foley, who's a director, dramaturg, and Tom Doyle, who's a musical arranger and composer. So I worked with them during 2020, during lockdown, on Zoom, and we completed the script and we completed the score for piano and accordion. So the next thing now really is just to record maybe 3 or 4 of the songs. We've got a package we can present to a producer. Of course, now is not the time for big theatre shows. So, you know, we're talking to Cork Midsummer Festival and the Everyman, hopefully in a couple of years when things are able to happen.
The Everyman pub.
The Everyman. The Everyman bar is part of the Everyman Theatre. So it's all the one. I don't care if we do it in the theatre or the bar or on the stairs or on the roof or
the street.
where it happens. The everyman are great. Yeah,
See the everyman.
it'll happen.
The pub is better.
And maybe it'll happen outdoors. Maybe it'll happen outdoors in Shalom Park, which is, the little park right in the middle of Jewtown. But also, I'm going to do a PhD there. I've said it.
You said it. Oh, it's that's
make that happen is, maybe start next year. But I mean, I'm only just at the beginning of, because to immerse yourself in research, it's very hard to do it when you've got loads of things you need to do to make a living, and as a musician, it's not that easy to make a decent living. So you do have to do lots of little bits of this and that and applying for funding and everything. So
I know I've just applied for funding myself.
Yeah.
The Irish Research Council.
Oh, good luck! Yeah.
Notoriously, I'll know but before the end of this month.
Let me know how you get on. So yeah, we're always just waiting for another funding deadline or to hear back.
My first time applying for funding, so.
Okay.
And I had to go to the top by applying for the Irish Research. It's notoriously hard to get, but I'll be heartbroken if I don't, because I'm competitive. When I set my mind to doing something, if I fail it,
What are you researching, Mary?
Hubert Butler. He was an Irish writer, considered to be the George Orwell of Ireland, and he left and went to Austria between 1939 and 45 and smuggled Jewish families out of Austria into Ireland and onto the Americas. But he's from Kilkenny originally, and he worked with the Quakers. But I'm looking at his life. I want to look at his life from 1939 to 45 in Austria, and it's been done on him. So I'm hoping I'll get the funding, because I can't do it otherwise.
Yeah. Well, that's where I'm at, but I won't be applying.
But you see, I proposed that I do a documentary on him out of the book first, then a documentary, and then a series of lectures, and then a play.
Great.
And a conference, an annual conference. So there's huge possibility. There's
application,
potential with it, but
God, like even putting the application together is the work of a couple of months, isn't it? Yeah.
It took me 5 years to decide to do it, because you have to apply for it up to 5 years after your PhD, and I just kept putting it off and off and off, and this was the final year that I could apply, so I applied.
Oh, well, good luck, Mary. I hope you get it.
I mean, even pressing the button on the computer to move on to the next page was just a nightmare, because you thought, if I make one little mistake, they'll reject it.
Yeah.
Even if you typed a wrong digit in, they would reject it. And I thought, oh, this is just too much. My heart was racing at 4 o'clock of mornings, trying to fill it out in case I pressed the wrong button, and you couldn't go back. And if you went forward without saving the previous page, it would go blank to them, and then they'd reject it. It was it's just unnecessarily stressful. And like you, all I was thinking of was there's so much more I could be doing now than filling out this form. But would you like to play Ruti? Thank you so very much for being my guest today.
You're very welcome. It's been lovely chatting with you.
It was really relaxing.
Yeah, very nice.
And I feel I know you forever. But would you like to play us out?
Yep, I'll play you a klezmer tune.
That's the end of the show for today. Until the next time, Lacuna de Bawalam to Valer Chiacana, Sonas Agus Gra, Agus Gadesh Slán, and we're going to be played out by Ruti Lachs from Cork. Shalom.
Shalom. Thank you, Mary.